Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, people at home. People who are dialing in. Good evening. Hope everybody's well. It's just 6 o'clock. Good evening, anybody who is watching on YouTube. I'm sure there's something better on the telly, but never mind. If you want to stay with us, do by all means. I'm sure it'll be an entertaining evening for you all. So, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's settled. You've all got your water. You're all you've got your pens, your handkerchiefs, everything. Good. Right. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Council. Now, before we start our usual proceedings, I'm sure you've all been extremely saddened to learn of the death of His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, and also some of our colleagues, Councillor Clark, and of our former colleague and Councillor Tony Kelly. Before I go on I've got to mention Tony, because when Tony was coming up for retiring, he said to me, I think you should stand in 7 stars. So it's Tony's fault that I am now the mayor, because if I hadn't stood in 7 stars, I wouldn't have been voted in and I wouldn't be the mayor. So it's all Tony's fault. So we can blame Tony for that. So, and we also should acknowledge that this has been a really difficult year, and many families have lost loved ones to COVID, to cancer, and all sorts of other reasons. And so now I'd like us to all observe a minute's silence and remember those people. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Now then, would any group leaders make any comments? Person Foster?
Thanks, Mayor. If you'd allow, I'll say a few words. The Duke of Edinburgh, the longest ever serving consort, was completely loyal and devoted consort to Her Majesty the Queen, her husband, her father, her grandfather and her great-grandfather. There's much that could and has been said about the Duke, but I think his lasting legacy must be the Duke of Edinburgh Awards that has boosted the life chances and opportunities to millions of young people around the world, and obviously our deepest sympathy is with Her Majesty the Queen and her family. I was absolutely shocked and devastated when we found out the news about Councillor Colin Clark's passing. I've spent a lot of time with Colin, particularly over the last 12 months, 18 months with the shared services, but he was admitted to hospital on the 2nd of March, Mayor, and died in the evening of Thursday, the 4th of March, surrounded by his wife Margaret and their children, Helen and Stephen. As we're all aware, he was the Mayor of South Ribble from 2012 to 2013, and so his wife, Margaret, as his Mayoress, and he carried out those duties diligently. He was a vastly experienced local councillor, and he represented Longton, Hutton West on South Ribble Borough Council here since 1997. Colin and his wife Margaret have lived in Longton for more than 40 years. He was a keen golfer, as many of us know, and he loved, as we all do, watching sports. Very sadly, he leaves behind 7 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren, his children and his wife, and our thoughts and best wishes are with Margaret and his family, and with our colleagues in the Conservative group here at South Ribble Borough Council. Finally, last but not least, Mayor, former Labour Council leader, Tony Kelly, JP. Many people of all parties knew Tony. He was a long-serving councillor, as I say, a former leader of this council as well. and he was 85 when he passed away on the 26th of February of this year after a short battle with cancer. He was first elected in 1974, as you mentioned earlier, proudly presenting the wards of Lower House and Seven Stars, until he decided to step down in May 2015, Mayor, when you took over his seat. He served as Mayor of South Ribble in 86-87, and his wife Sheila accompanied him as the Mayoress. As I mentioned earlier, he was also the leader of this council from 1995 to 1998. He then became an honorary freeman of South Ribble, something he was highly proud of in 2010. As I mentioned as well, he was a Justice of the Peace. He leaves behind 3 daughters, Sharon, Christine and Anne, and a son, Andrew. He also leaves behind 6 grandchildren, and he'd recently been delighted to know, just before he died, that his first great-grandchild was due in June. Our thoughts are with his family. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Smith, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Margaret, I'm looking for you.
I'm sorry, Mayor. It's so long since I've been here, I've forgotten how to use the machine.
I've forgotten, I didn't even know you were here, Margaret. I'm very sorry.
It's all right, I'm here. First of all, I would like to pay tribute to the Duke of Edinburgh, and on behalf of the Conservative group, we would like to express our condolences to Her Majesty the Queen on the death of His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. Many tributes have been paid over recent weeks, and what more can one add? But I think that the lasting legacy to his life would be his devotion to Her Majesty and the enduring work that was started by him with the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme that helped so many people achieve what they would never have dreamed of, and his commitment to the service of our country. I do feel that he would have been amazed at the love and affection that he was held in by the people of this country and the Commonwealth. His was certainly a life lived to the full. If I could now pay tribute to Councillor Clark. And you'll have to forgive me, Mayor, if I get a bit emotional. So, it was with great sadness that the members of the Conservative group received the news of the untimely passing of our friend and colleague, Colin Clark. Colin, to our group, was a loyal and committed member, rarely missing a meeting, always engaged and clear in his view of what was required on any issue or situation. Colin joined the council in 1997, caused by a by-election. He served for many years as a very effective chairman of one of the 3 scrutiny committees that we had at that time, soon gaining a reputation for integrity and a commitment to the job in hand. Later on, he took up a position on the cabinet. He served as my deputy for a number of years. His help and advice was always welcome. Amongst his portfolios was to oversee the finances, which he did very conscientiously. He served for a short period of time as leader of the council. He took particular pleasure in the fact that in 2007, he started to take forward the embryonic shared services and continued on that committee until his death in March. He also brought a depth of experience to the governance committee, of which he was a very committed member, always probing and questioning. Margaret, his wife, told me when I was researching Colin's prior to proposing him for the morality that he was a hoarder. He would hoard anything and everything, just in case it would be useful or it came in handy. Margaret told me recently that his study at home, she would have difficulty in entering for all the paperwork that was stored there. I know this week that the council has been to collect the confidential papers for shredding. A van had to be taken there. There was so much paperwork to collect. He had all the paperwork going back to when he first started on the council in 1997. Phil and I had the honour to represent the Conservative group and the association at Colin's funeral at St Michael's Church, which was a very moving service, which detailed the very many varied interests that Colin had, especially his lifelong interest in sport of all kind, but rugby and cricket being his favourites. If a group or cabinet meeting was to be convened, it was always to Colin I went first, because he was the one with the packed diary, with the meetings, recently on Zoom, inspecting care homes. He used to do mental health tribunals, educational panels, and work with the Magistrates Board. The pleasure that he took in being mayor in 2012-13 with Margaret as his mayoress was the year that he remembered with pride. For a job well done and for all the wonderful memories that he and Margaret created. We as a group will miss him for his helpfulness to our new members, his ability to solve problems, his knowledge of so many aspects of life that affected his council work, and his ethic for hard work and honesty. But mostly, we will miss his friendship, which many of us had the pleasure to enjoy for so many years. God bless you, Colin. May you rest in peace. And now, Mayor, if I could turn to our former councillor, Kelly. As had been mentioned, Councillor Anthony Kelly served this council for over 40 years, first elected for the old Lower House ward in 1974, the year the council was formed. As some of you know, I've been around a long time, so I can recall the early days of this council along with Councillor Hesketh. In the early days, we had a situation where the centre of Leyland was boarded up wasteland, owned by a company called Metrolands. The development was delayed many times, much to the frustration of all. When Turner became the leader in 1995, he made it his priority to get Southern Towngate developed. In this, he was successful, and so eventually the work started, and as we know, we now have Tesco site, which was a great achievement by him. I served with Tony on the magistrates bench for a number of years, and we always got along extremely well. I remember him with a ready smile, a happy nature, always fair-minded and honest in his dealings. When in 2010 I rang him to ask him if he would like to be made a freeman of the borough, he was lost for words for a few moments and then expressed his great pleasure and was eager to know if he had any sheep, could he drive them down for flaying to the park? I have no idea why he wanted to ask that question. We as a group have sent our condolences to his family and we extend them to the Labour group. Tony will be missed by his family and friends, who I'm sure take comfort for a life well lived and a job well done. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now, I know it's not on the minutes, but does anybody else want to say anything? Because now will be your moment to say. Anybody at home, on Teams? No? Anybody? No? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Now then, it's the domestic arrangements, everybody. Members in attendance at the Civic, please respect the COVID-19 safety measures in place. Mobile devices, please ensure that all electronic equipment is either on silent mode or switched off. I've heard somebody's phone went off a little minute ago. Switch it off. Members are reminded that if you wish to speak, now this is for you, Councillor Smith, if you've forgotten, you have to press the raise hand if you're at home, or you have to press the little red button on your thing. Right, okay, good. Is that all right? Was that patronising enough? Voting will be undertaken by roll call where needed, and the monitoring officer will call out members' names alphabetically. If any members are dialing into the meeting using a telephone, please remember you to dial 6 when they wish to unmute during a vote. The meeting is being live screened during the open session for members of the public to watch, and public contributions were requested to be received in writing 2 working days prior to the meeting, and as far as I'm aware, we have not got any questions from the public. And on behalf of the members, please can I welcome Louise Mattison as the new Director of Finance and Section 151 Officer. And is she here? She's dialing remotely. Hello, hello, remotely person. And apparently, I've got to say thank you to somebody who described himself as the handsome James Thompson. Yes, he did. I've got that as a message. Somebody told me that. The handsome James Thompson for standing into the section 1 of 151 over the past 12 months. And we note he will now take his substantive role as Deputy Section 151 officer. So thank you, James, for that. And James, I presume he's dialing in as well, is he? Is he? Hello, James, and thank you. Okay. Pardon? Shall we take a vote on whether he's handsome or not? Can we do that through the monitoring officer, please? Yeah. All right, we'll try that later. Right, apologies for absence. Have we got any apologies for absence? Mr. Hall? None? Right, thank you. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained within the agenda. And as this is a hybrid meeting, if a member has a pecuniary interest, they are requested to leave the call completely rather than just mute their microphone. The member can then rejoin the call following the completion of the item in question. Are there any declarations of interest? Anybody? Oh. No, thank you. Right, we're on to the minutes of Wednesday, the 24th of February. Now, this is an item for decision. Can I please ask the Leader of the Council, Paul Foster, to move that the minutes are approved?
Happy to move that, Mayor. Thank you.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Titherington. Now, are there any questions about the accuracy of these minutes? Anybody? No? Good. Can I hand it over to the monitoring officer for the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I just check that there's nobody who's in opposition to these minutes? If I have to, I'll go through a full recorded vote, but it would seem a waste of time if there's nobody in opposition. So could you just clarify whether there's anybody with any objections to these minutes? Well, on that basis, Mr. Mayor, should we proceed on the basis that the minutes are agreed?
Right, thank you. Right, item 4 is the Mayor's announcements, so that'll be me then, won't it? Well, I've continued to do a lot of the stuff virtually and attending meetings via Zoom and engaging via Facebook, and it's doing really well, and it's reaching a very wide demographic. I mean, you're aware of the stories that I was reading, and they reached over nearly 15,000 views. And this is the minute when I do a bit of salesmanship. This is the book of the stories that the children wrote. Okay. All the children will receive one of these, but because you're all really wealthy, if you want one, you'll have to buy it, right? And can I just say, it is wonderful. The stories are wonderful, the pictures are wonderful, and it's well worth it. So if you want to order one, order it through Tracy, and of course those proceeds will go to the charities, to the Hospice to Sleep and to the Women's Refuge. So, but please, it's a cracking, it's lovely. I've had so much pleasure reading the stories, and so please. So that's my sales pitch. So I make sure you all buy one, or else I shall not let you speak in council. How's that? So that's that. Yesterday I did a Zoom meeting with the U3A, you know, the University of the Third Age, and they wanted to know what it was like to be the virtual mayor, and they wanted me to do like half an hour's talk. Obviously that was very difficult for me, as you will understand. So that was quite interesting, lots of questions. One of the interesting questions they asked was about our twinning town in Germany and what had we done to contact them, and I said I had already contacted them, and I have now an idea to do a Zoom meeting with them. So that's hot off the press. I've been let out as well this month. I've been allowed out. So I've cut a ribbon to reopen the Dunkirk Hall pub. I attended the Blackburn Cathedral for the memorial service for the Prince Philip, and that was very moving because Lord Lieutenant actually made it very personal because he knew the Duke. So that was a lovely service. And this morning we commemorated International Workers' Memorial Day in the new garden at the back of the. It looks as though it's going to be called the Peace Garden, by the way, and hopefully we will be opening it officially on the 19th of May, which is in the middle of Dementia Awareness Week. Sadly, because of the COVID restrictions, you can't come unless you're invited. So unless you get an invitation, please don't turn up, because we're going to invite the people who've done some of the gardening and some of the dementia people. But certainly in July there will be a celebration, and we'll do some sort of the yellow ribbon thing for the hospice out there. But that's me. That's what I've been doing. I'm sure I've been doing other things as well, but that's it. So I've been trying to earn my money. Okay. Oh, and tonight I'm here doing this. Right. Okay. So that's me. But lots of people online are obviously liking what we're doing. We're reaching a tremendous demographic. So I can only say thank you to the IT department at the communications and Tracy, who are team there. Let's put it that way. Okay, now we're on item 5, the cabinet. Okay, this item is for noting. Please can I ask the leader of the council, Paul Foster, to present his report.
Thanks, Mayor. As presented to Council is the record of the decisions made at the meeting of the Cabinet on the 24th of March 2021. There was details of the Cabinet Forward Plan through to February of next year. The Q3 Performance Monitoring Report was presented, Mayor. The Community Hubs Update and Action Plans was presented. Refurbishment of the playground at Hague Avenue in Leyland. The Budget Monitoring for Q3. The Shared Services Events Team Review, the Leisure Centre Booking and Direct Debit Collection Systems, Mayor, and finally a record of the urgent decisions taken. I won't go into any more detail, Mayor, but we're ready with my colleagues if there are any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Is this seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Titherington. Now this is for noting, but are there any questions from any members of the council? Anybody? Anybody? Oh, that's good. We might all get home early tonight. Famous last words.
Mayor, we've lost sound.
Thought I didn't know I switched it off. You're muted. That's the thing, isn't it? You're muted. Yeah. Urgent executive decisions. This item's for noting. Can I ask the leader of the council, Paul Foster, to present his report?
Thank you again, Mary. In line with the transparency agenda of the administration, this report informs Council of a number of urgent decisions taken by the Executive over the last 3 months in accordance with the urgency procedures outlined in the Council's constitution. These include key decisions which include confidential or exempt information, and urgent decisions for which the Mayor agreed to waive a scrutiny calling. Very briefly, Mayor, the decisions made were in respect of fire safety compartmentation works, the confirmation of South Ribble annual housing requirement figures, acquisition of land, ICT service review, the leisure facilities contracts for the new in-house leisure facilities service, the town deal heads of terms being signed, the expanded retail and nursery discount for 21-22, the leisure centres booking system, and the government restart grant scheme. And again, I present the report to Council for noting, and myself and my Cabinet colleagues are available for any question members may have. Thank you.
Note here about a slight amendment with regard to the provision of a loan and grant to facilitate the works at Hull Village. The date for the decision says it's the 29th of January, and in fact, it was on the 10th of February. So I've got a note here to alter that.
Yeah, so we're presenting that amendment there. Thank
right,
you.
Brilliant. Is that seconded? Is the report seconded?
Well, it's a record of the decisions that have been making, yeah, but if it needs seconding, I second it.
Well, it says on my notes, is that seconded? It says so. And I always follow the rules, you know that. Yeah. Okay, it's just for noting. Thank you, everybody. Are there any questions from anybody? Any questions? No? Anybody at home? No? Thank you very much. Okay. Sorry, just for noting, everybody. Governance Committee. Again, this is only for noting, and can I please ask the Chair of Governance Committee, Ian Watkins, to present his report?
Thank you, Chair. Mr Watkins, Councillor Watkins is chairing a National Union meeting for International Workers Memorial Day today, and will be joining us a little later, so I'm happy to present the report on his behalf as Vice Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor.
Report of the meeting on the 23rd of March. They are in your pack, page 29 to 32. We discussed the annual governance statement progress report. The Director of Governance and Monitoring Officer presented a report updating members on the progress of the annual governance statement action plan, and the committee noted the progress and substantial completion of the action plan. We looked at internal audit plan 2021-2022. The Shared Services Lead Audit and Risk presented a report explaining the content of the internal audit work programme, and the committee made the following decisions: that the committee approves the 2021-2022 internal audit plan and associated indicators, and that the committee approves the internal audit charter. Key contracts and partnerships framework approach. The transformation and change team leader presented a report outlining a proposed approach for the development of the key contracts and partnerships framework and the next steps. And the committee made the following decision: that subject to the inclusion of information specified at point 2 above, I'll explain that in a second, the approach for the development of the key contracts and partnerships framework and next steps is approved. And number 2 above was agreement to include in the list of proposed key contracts and partnerships that any movement of monies, expected receipt of monies arising from the City Deal Partnership, e.g. SIL, New Homes Bonus. Where are we up to? Governance Committee Effectiveness Review. The Shared Services Lead Audit and Risk presented a report of the Director of Governance and Monitoring Officer, which sought to do several things. The committee made the following decision: A, that the report be noted, that the updated terms of reference to be submitted to full council for approval, that the self-assessment of good practice and the subsequent actions be noted, and that the proposals in relation to developing members' skills and knowledge be accepted. Risk management strategy. The Shared Risk Services Lead Audit and Risk presented a report concerning risk management strategy, and the committee agreed that the updated risk management strategy be approved. Local Code of Corporate Governance update. The Director of Governance and Monitoring Officer presented a report informing members of the updates to Local Code of Corporate Governance. And the committee agreed that the Local Code of Corporate Governance attached at Appendix A in your notes to the report be approved. And finally, proposed updated financial procedure rules. The Deputy Director of Finance and Section 151 Officer presented a report which reviews and updates the financial regulations and financial procedure rules as detailed in the Council's Constitution. The committee agreed the following: that the proposed changes to financial procedure rules be noted, and that the committee recommends adoption of the proposed changes to Council. I'd like to thank committee members for their contributions and officers for all their hard work and diligence, and I commend the report to Council for noting. Thank you, Chair.
Just looking at. Thank you, Councillor Sharples. Is that seconded?
Yes, I second it.
Thank you, Councillor Amelia. I also have a note on here. Right, it's a note for Councillor Watkins. Right, I'm going to read this out because I don't want to upset anybody and do it all wrong, because it's, you're right. It says, as Chair of the Governance Committee, I would like to inform Council of an amendment to the report, namely under Risk Management Strategy, paragraph 18, second bullet point, which refers to a question from Councillor Bretherton. The report should state that Councillor Bretherton made reference to how the asset allocation of the Employee Pension Fund was reported in the Statement of Accounts. The makeup of the assets indicated that the pensioner fund was invested in a high-risk manner, 53% invested in private equity. The auditor confirmed that the asset allocation was incorrectly reported. He did not refer to the level of risk being marked high. The assessment allocation was reported incorrectly and did truly reflect how the pension was invested as confirmed by the auditor. Subject to this amendment, I would like the Council to note this report. Okay. Okay, thank you. Now this is for noting. Now, are there any questions from anybody? Councillor Foster.
Not a question, just to highlight to members, if I may, Mayor, and thank the Governance Committee and the Monitoring Officer, because members will note under the Annual Governance Statement Progress Report on page 29 of the Agenda Pack that the action plan associated with some of the corporate governance challenges we had is substantially now complete, and I think that's a tremendous work by all concerned in getting that work signed off and completed in line with the deadlines that the external auditors and the council agreed. So a big thank you from the administration, and let's keep on with this improvement plan. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. And so no questions from anybody at home? No? No. Right, moving on. We're on item 8, changes to the council's constitution. Again, now this is an item for a decision. Can I ask the chair of the Governance Committee, and I presume it's going to be Councillor Sharples, is it? For doing... He's going home, he's had enough, he's done one report. Yeah, he thought he'd done his bit, he got another bit to do. Changes to council's constitution, Councillor Sharples.
Changes to council's constitution?
Yeah, page 33 to 80. Yeah.
This item is for decision. Can I please ask the chair of the Governance Committee? That's in this case, that's me standing in.
Yeah, you standing in. Just nod your head and say yes.
Well, do I have to ask somebody to? Sorry, I'm with it now. Yeah, I'll present this to council.
Right, thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Amelia. Now, are there any questions from members of the council in the building? Anybody at home? Anybody at home, Ben? No? No questions? Oh, right, no debate. Right, and we now hand over to the Monitoring Officer for the vote, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This matter has already been through Governance Committee. Could I just check at the outset whether there's any opposition to the report? Because if there isn't, then we can just proceed on the basis of the report and take it as approved. So is there any opposition? If there is, I'll take a full recorded vote. But if not, we can just proceed on the basis set out. So I think on that basis, Mayor, I don't think anyone's indicating they wish to object to anything in the report. So on that basis, we'll take her as approved, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, item 9, Scrutiny Committee. This item again is for noting. Please can I ask the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor David Howarth, to present his report. Is David at home?
David is at home, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. These are the minutes of 2 meetings that were held in March. The Scrutiny Committee being held on the 18th of March and the Scrutiny Budget and Performance Panel held on the 22nd. The recommendations are as set out, and I would like to move those, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is this seconded?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Now, this is only for noting. Are there any questions from anybody in the building, at home? Anybody, Ben? Anybody at home? No, thank you. It's only for noting, so we can move on. Thank you very much. Right. Are you sure we've not missed anything out? It's going a bit quick, this, isn't it? Are you sure? Yeah, just get on with it. Yeah, right. Item 10. Now it's questions to the Leader of the Council. Has anybody got any questions for Councillor Foster? Councillor Trafford.
Thank you, Mayor. The political climate at present, which residents are concerned about, is one that portrays those in power as sleazy, as compulsive liars and as corrupt, especially since the latest scandal in Downing Street. So can the Leader of the Council assure us that the administration operates on values of transparency, accountability and democracy? Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? Anybody at home? No? Anybody, Ben? No? No. Right. Councillor? One at a time. Right, would you like to answer that question then first, Councillor Fox?
Thanks, Mayor. Just sometimes a little bit easier, one at a time, otherwise I forget the questions. An interesting question from Councillor Trafford, and I thank him for it, because one of the things that I think is becoming clearer and clearer, Mayor, is there is a huge difference between local politics and national politics. And I do believe what's going on down at Westminster at the moment does put a bad stain on all politicians, and I think it's woeful. And I can guarantee council, and most importantly all our residents, that there is no corruption, sleaze or lying going on in South Ribble, and we will remain at all times wholly transparent and, most importantly, Mayor, accountable. Thank you.
Councillor Foster. And any other questions? Councillor Thorburn. I presume he's at home, is he?
Thank you, Mayor. Just thinking about any political statements, not being rude, this close to an election, we should refrain from them under purdah, really. And that's my final say on the question. So I'll put that to Gary Hall. Should that statement be withdrawn from the council minutes?
Are we actually under purdah now? Just to clarify. It doesn't break the purdah rules. It doesn't break the purdah rules, apparently. I have it on good authority on my left-hand side.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions, anybody? No, nobody else? No, thank you for that. All right, thank you, Councillor Foster. Sorry, Cabinet members, and I will take these in order. So this question is for Health and Wellbeing, Councillor Mick Titherington. Any questions for Councillor Titherington? No. No, no, thank you. No questions for Councillor Titherington. And now questions for, sorry?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I did.
Sorry? Oh, sorry, Councillor Howarth. Sorry, we missed you. Thank you, Councillor.
No, that's okay. It is a councillor. A question for Councillor Titherington. Conveniently or ironically or whatever, I'm sitting in my office at the moment at home, and I can look out on the floodlights on the multi-use games area at Priory at the leisure centre. And some older members of this council may recall that the previous administration purloined £30,000, a quarter of the annual budget of the Pemberton Town Council, to pay for a set of floodlights to put around the multi-use games area, probably well over a decade ago. And for years, I've sat and looked out of my window wondering when, if ever, they will be turned on. So I wonder if Councillor Titherington is as pleased as I am that now that Priory Academy have taken over the running of the multi-use games area and have actually repaired those floodlights. Is he as pleased as I am that I can now look out of my window in the evening and see the floodlights turned on, because they're now being used, given as the Academy has set up a netball league and are letting out the multi-use games area, something that Councillor Phil Smith and the previous administration completely failed to do.
Councillor Titherington.
Well, I am delighted if people are taking advantage of the facilities that are open to them to participate in the activities of their choice. So if there is a facility there for people to participate in the sports of their choice, then I am delighted that the facility is there for them to avail.
Thank you, Councillor Titherington. Councillor Michael Green.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's to seek a ruling, really, from the Chief Executive and the Deputy Monitoring Officer. A question was asked there clearly of party political content and attacking the previous administration when we have 2 by-elections taking place in just 8 days' time at South Ribble Borough Council, as well as a suite of other elections taking place on the same day. I would concur with Councillor Philbourne's concern previously But the comments and question just made by Councillor Howarth is clearly, in my opinion, over the line, and I seek guidance from the Chief Executive and or the Deputy Monitoring Officer as to whether that should have been permitted to even be asked.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Green. I think technically, again, that was not a breach, but I would remind members to try and moderate during the PERDA period some of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Can we just clarify? We are in PERDA now, yeah, and we're in PERDA until when? 6th of May. Right, just so we all know, because some people might not know, so we're in PERDA. That means you've all got to go behind the screen and hide. You're not allowed to make anything political. Okay. It's all very complicated, but we are in PERDA now, so we do have to be careful. But it is very difficult to preempt what people are going to say. We aren't mind readers, but do please, everybody, just be a bit careful. Okay? Thank you very much. Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Beck. I think it would be helpful for all members if we could, after the election, receive some training on PERDA, because I watched Prime Minister's questions this lunchtime, quite enjoyable actually, and there was a number of Conservative MPs making highly political points, broadcast live up and down the country, which was clearly electioneering. So I don't understand how PERDA doesn't account in some areas, but it does in others. So yeah, maybe we could have some training on that so we fully understand it.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Foster. Yes.
Yeah, I think the point there is there's no general election. So, but I accept the rules are very vague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody switch me off. Thank you, Mayor. I will be very careful. There's an awful lot I could say, but I won't. But I will just correct one statement, which is a statement of purloined some money from the town council. Purloined would mean, I don't know, misused, stolen, I don't know. All I can say is that the members of the town council agreed with it, they voted on it, and that's exactly what happened. And I'll say no more. Thank you.
Councillor Smith. Right. Nobody else? Is there anybody else? No. Right. Okay. We'll move on to questions to the Cabinet Member for Community, Social Justice and Wealth Building, Councillor Bielinski-Gelder. Yes, Councillor Trafford.
Thank you, Mayor. So after 2 years, I've finally been given some data about the use of bailiffs by South Ribble Borough Council. And I was unpleasantly surprised to see that in the 2019-2020 financial year that there was almost 200 cases of debt that was passed on to bailiffs. And we also had a premium as well for that people with debt exceeding £1,500 had to pay. So the most vulnerable and those in the greatest financial difficulty having to pay even more. So my question is, with the inevitability of people's mental well-being decreasing and people's financial stability decreasing, can the Cabinet Member consider banning the use of bailiffs and the subsequent intimidation that the use of them provides? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trafford. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Trafford. Councillor Trafford and I were saddened to discover, after discussions with officers, that over the course of the last 12 months, we, South Ribble Borough Council, have pursued people and businesses for debts and more than likely increased their debt burden due to charges bailiffs have listed, including over £110 just for taking and selling personal belongings. I'm personally surprised to see that we are in effect still charging those who may be dipping into poverty, waiting for the universal credits to start, and or already in poverty, and asking them effectively to pay a premium, only ladening residents with more debt and pressure, which will inevitably impact on mental health, ultimately placing more pressure on families and services to which we don't really know the full cost. So as a member for Community, Social Justice and Wealth Building, which includes under the umbrella council tax recovery, I'm more than happy to look into more ethical ways of recovering unpaid tax. I'd like to reiterate to all members, as a council, we do provide what I would consider a wraparound service for residents which are struggling with payments or charges or changes in circumstances. And we have given discounts to residents during the COVID crisis and support changes to repayments, as well as offering a fund for residents to apply to when in real difficulties. We do everything we can to negate using bailiffs. I think it needs to be made clear. But yes, I will certainly write to officers asking them to look at supporting residents to pay rather than punishing them because they cannot pay. So I will take this away. I think the leader would like to make a comment and say a few words on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Mayor. Just very briefly, I've already had a quick discussion with Councillor Blinsky-Gelder about this, and we do need some urgent clarity from officers, because we understood as an administration we had requested that there was no bailiff intervention during the pandemic. And so what we can say to Councillor Trafford and all councillors is we'll most certainly be bringing a detailed paper on this back to Council and Cabinet as quickly as possible, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Are there any more questions? Councillor Blinsky-Gelder? Anybody? No? Nobody at home? Right, thank you. We'll move on to Cabinet Member for Finance, Property and Assets, Councillor Matthew Tomlinson. Are there any questions? Lightly tonight. And turn the page over. And now we're on Cabinet Member for Planning, Business Support and Regeneration, Councillor Bill Evans. Are there any questions for Councillor? Thank you. Well, there you go. I have no urgent items. Has anybody got anything else they're desperate for? No. Well, it's only 10 to 7. Good grief, it's only 10. Can I just have a little lie down, because I'm going to bed. I don't ever remember a council meeting being this short in all the time I've been a councillor. Congratulations, everybody. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you for attendance. Now, I just have to tell you this now, for those in attendance here, please can you exit starting from the back and, and behave all the things that you're supposed to do, 6 feet apart and, well, thank you very much, everybody, for a really good meeting.
Mayor, can I just ask you to keep talking, please, for 1 minute, because I've got a bet on with the Chief Exec and he's gloating. And I've already had the email of him gloating, so can you please keep talking for a minute?
Because it was a quick meeting. Don't forget to buy your books. Don't forget to buy your books. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and well, won't you? Don't need that. Shove that back in there.